Hi everybody, welcome to School of Scarlet. Today we are going deep. So I think that you are ready for this. And so we're going to be going into transcending consciousness and really exploring consciousness a little bit deeper here. So when I first began this channel, I was sharing things along the void, along non-duality. You could call it nothingness. And so that was my experience, and I was sharing my experience with y'all. And I really resonated with that and was able to share that with you here. But I quickly began to notice that for a lot of people that even resonated with it, they weren't there yet. They didn't understand it, and it was quite confusing for a lot of people. I offer one-on-one services, and I would get clients that would come in for one-on-one services, and they were completely in a state where this could actually harm them to know. So what I began to do is kind of scale back and move into other parts of consciousness. Consciousness is very vast, very wide. It has infinite nature. And for a better, for lack of better term, there is a scale, there is levels to this. And so I can essentially move in and out of different levels of consciousness and experience those for myself and transcend them in that way. And from different levels of consciousness, I can speak from those. Some are more painful than others because at certain levels you don't want to go down into certain aspects of consciousness anymore, but there is sort of like a middle ground that we can meet at. And so for me, that was intuition, which is what I've been kind of sitting on here on this channel, is really speaking from a place of intuition. But essentially there is more, and a lot more, and there is also a lower aspect to this as well. So what I'm going to be doing through this video is kind of moving through the different aspects of consciousness and sharing with you what I found in those areas of consciousness. And so it's going to be a range. It's going to be kind of like a hierarchy in a way, although really nothing exists like that. But this is for you to kind of let your mind jog with it and see what you resonate with and kind of go deeper with it as we transcend higher and higher in this talk. So I essentially, like I say, have been sitting on, sharing intuitive messages, which is here and now in this moment, and it's really something that I can resonate with, and it's kind of that middle ground. But today I was out here, it's a beautiful day. I was out here cleaning my pool, getting it ready for the next couple days where I'm going to go swimming and do different things. And so I picked up this little test kit thingy from Walmart. It's just from the pool section. And so you put your water into it and essentially a few chemicals and things, and then it tells you where you're at, with the pH, with the chlorine, and that sort of thing. And so that way you can, fix it with your pool and get it to the right levels. And so as I was out there doing this today, that's when today's message came through, that the collective is truly ready to hear and move through different aspects of consciousness. It's not something that could psychologically harm anybody or make them unstable in some sort of way, or so in the past, it's what it felt like is with some people, they weren't ready for this and it could really unbalance them, and so it wasn't safe to share. And like I say, I stood at a place of intuition and speaking from this moment as the energies I could feel and sense where a person was at and what to share. But our collective consciousness has now moved forward, and so more and more of you are awakening, if you want to call it that, and you're seeing more and more and more of yourselves. And so we're able to go a little bit deeper. And so I was looking at this and I began to get the message that we're ready to go through all of these levels. From the very bottom level, that's really kind of unhealthy and not good for us, to, up to the top. And it doesn't really matter where you're at, but there are, like I say, more painful levels to this that I'm sure many don't want to be in or experience any longer, which is why we're kind of raising our consciousness and awakening, if you want to call it that, into more and more of who we are. So we'll see where this talk goes, and if I have to make it a 1-part, a 2-part, or maybe even a 3-part. And so we'll go ahead and get started with the lowest level. So if we're looking at this, the lowest level here, if you find yourself at this level, it's like, You know, you really got to do something to get it up, to raise it, to balance it where it's at. And so when you're at that lowest level, it's really unhealthy. It's not healthy to go swimming in the swimming pool when it's at that level. There's something off balance there. And so that lowest level, when it comes to our consciousness, and I'm just kind of creating what I want to call these levels, so you can call it whatever you want. And as a matter of fact, I believe that there already are levels of consciousness that have, like scales that have been created by psychologists, by awakened beings, and different things like that. So you can always look into those as well. But the lowest level that I find is like a no soul. And it's kind of like a person who is appearing in our reality who has kind of like a vacant look to them. It almost, if you're not at that level, it almost kind of scares you, because you see this kind of person and you can see that they don't have any kind of heart. They are able to be sadistic. They're able to hurt people. And you can see in their eyes, it's almost like vacant, or it's like a dark eye. There's something about them that doesn't even feel human, because the heart is so suppressed. And so this isn't to judge anyone. This is really to share with you the different levels of consciousness. And at this level, there is a bit of a freedom, because they feel that they could do whatever to humanity or to whatever, you know, animals, anything. But at a different level, there is a very strong bondage that they actually can't get out of this, and they can't experience the heart, which really keeps them in separation. So as we transcend up in consciousness, we actually don't experience separation as strong. But at the very, very lowest levels, we experience separation as something very, very obvious to us, even though it's all an illusion. So what do I mean by that? They see themselves as themselves and the other, and they can see the other as a threat. They can see the other as someone that could hurt them. They could see the other as someone that they can control, manipulate, get something from, or even if it's, you know, as simple as stealing their energy or something like that. So at the very lowest level, they see themselves as a being that has to do something to overpower another and take their power in order to survive. So this is a level of the parasite. This is the level of really having to leech onto something, take from something in some way, whether it's another human being, whether it's a business, whether it's nature, humanity, whatever. They have to take from others, just like a parasite would, to survive. So this may sound crazy to you, or it might sound like, oh, you know, this is not real, but it even happens in nature. Okay, so this is something that is being shown all around and everything in our reality. So it's not so far-fetched. You can think of a mosquito, you can think of a tick, a leech. These are things that occur in nature. And so when you think about these things, they essentially, the only way that they survive is by taking from another. They have to suck the blood. They have to leech off of the other being of whatever kind it is. And so they have to essentially do this. And at a human level, it occurs as well. And so, you know, some of you may have never seen a person that is a parasite, or that exhibits the soulless kind of eyes or glare, or this soulless kind of being existence. And you're very lucky to not have experienced that yet. But if you have experienced that, you know exactly what it is, and it's something that you will never ever forget. I can remember the first time that I experienced it. It was someone I didn't really know. I walked into a store and I was interacting. The person was an associate, you know, working there, a sales associate. And I was interacting with them, and there was something very, very dark about them, very dark. And you could just tell through the eyes that there was like nothing there. It was very little. And of course, there's always something there. Everything that's expressing is expressing some aspect of reality. There's a common thread through everything. But there is that suppressed nature in that being, where all you're really seeing are other aspects of it, just like a mosquito, a tick, or something like that. Their whole existence really is to suck off another being, their blood, their nutrients, and everything like that. So this being appeared to me in a way that I will never ever forget, because it was energetically so opposite for me at the moment. And you know, maybe at a different time I wouldn't have noticed it as much, but at this particular moment, just walking into that store, just getting close to this person, was a weird, horrible feeling. Like I say, when you don't want to really mess too much with those lower realms at a certain level. It's like it just feels very, very yucky, because you identify it immediately, and you're just like, I'm not messing with that, and you walk out. But I had to interact with the person for just a short amount of time, and I noticed the eyes, I noticed the demeanor, I noticed various things about it. So that is the lowest level, and you will find these people out in the world, and it's important that you know that this exists. And a lot of people want to say, oh, it's demonic, it's demons, it's this, it's that. It's not exactly that. It's an expression of reality at a very suppressed situation, where they're very separate from their heart. They're very separate from who they truly are, or the truth of reality of what they really are in wholeness. So that is expressing. It has a right to express here, but you don't have to interact with it. But that is the lowest level. I would call it the parasite. And then if we move up from there, the next level would be the narcissist. So the narcissist is not exactly totally soulless. Like they don't appear to be, you know, dark in the eyes or vacant. They sometimes even seem very alive, very charming. They can put on a persona. They can really fool you into thinking that they are something that they are not. But the narcissist is really in this stage of owning everything. So as soon as they get a partner, they want to kind of own and control that partner. And that's where we see narcissistic relationships. They see everything as, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. And so they may acquire a lot of physical items, and they use that to kind of build up their ego, but at the same time to say it's theirs, to really own it in a way, to control it in a way. And they're doing this not out of connection, not out of because they're, you know, in love with everything, but because of fear, because they think that if they have more, they are more. So they believe that having more makes them more. So that's why they try to acquire and hold on to so much in such a very ruthless way at times. So narcissistic relationships are very abusive, whether that's a romantic relationship, a business relationship, whatever it is. It's very, very controlling, where it actually hurts the other. Whereas at higher or different levels of consciousness, there's no more of that. There is total sovereignty in allowing others to have free will. Whereas the narcissistic level, there's control in a way of fear, of thinking that the other one, we have to take their power so that they don't do anything that could hurt us, so that they don't do anything to leave us, so that they don't do anything to take away something from us. So it's actually very fear-based on control, and it's a pattern that's extremely hard to break for that individual. And most of the times narcissists will never admit that they are a narcissist, nor do they identify that way or ever see themselves that way. They are just so deep into that identity and expressing at that level that it's very hard for them to move out of it. So narcissists, oftentimes you're going to find that at the lower realms, the parasite, the narcissist, they will team up with someone that is at a different level of consciousness to take from them what they cannot cultivate or have on their own currently at their state of consciousness. So we'll see the combination of a narcissist with an empath, and so the narcissist will suck out, you know, all the life, the energy, the life force from that empath, and leave that empath feeling drained, feeling low, feeling depleted, while the narcissist feels amazing and is moving along life just fine. but he or she is doing it at a level of fear, a level of having to take from others to have for itself. So that is the second level. And so the third level is the matrix people. And this is the most common that we see in our reality, is people that live among the matrix, people that you can call them non-player characters, but essentially they're just people in the matrix that truly believe everything that they have been given, everything that they have been fed here on earth. So they believe that they have to follow a blueprint. They believe that they have to do X, Y, and Z to be successful. They believe there's a formula to being successful. They don't see outside of the dogma, the constructs of the society that they grew up in. You know, oftentimes they're very much tied to religions and things like that are you know, very much into rules. And so the matrix people are very much into following the rules, following the blueprint, following the guidelines. And if they see that anyone is not following those blueprints or guidelines, they don't think that they are successful. They think that they are doing the right thing, where they see someone else expressing in a different way, they think that that is not good. So they're very comfortable in staying in the perceived security of life, thinking that if they do what is prescribed to them, that they are safe, that they are worthy of love even. And so they are fine to be in the matrix. And the matrix people oftentimes are the ones that work for others, don't really create on their own anything. They just are kind of like that worker bee, the ones that are going to work every day, following a certain religion, following what the psychologist, therapist says, following what their husband, wife says. They're the ones that are listening and following to these rules that other people are prescribing to them. And so I've written down different little things. And so one of the things I wrote is, I am what I do. So they get a lot of pleasure in working, especially. And so if they are a good worker, a good employee, then they get, you know, this feeling of worthiness within them. If they accomplish the things that are within that blueprint, they have 2.5 kids, they get married, they have a house, they get a college degree, they have a certain amount of money in the savings or whatever, then they feel accomplished. They feel that they are somebody. And they really don't see outside of that, even though sometimes their soul, in this case, will call out for it. And what I call the soul is your heart, spirit, your intuition. It's not any specific name you put on anything. As a matter of fact, any names or labels I put on anything today is just mumbo jumbo. It's not even anything, and neither is this hierarchy, which is really interesting. At the highest levels, all of that dissolves, but for the aspects that I have to portray in this video, I have to go to different levels of consciousness to be able to speak to you in a way that would be understandable. So at this level, this heart does speak at times. And it does say, you know, maybe you should try branching out. Maybe you should try starting your own business. Maybe this marriage is not for you, or maybe this is not the life for you. Maybe you actually wanted to do this. And it'll begin to kind of nudge a little bit at the person. But the matrix person will eventually fall into that, I am what I do. And if I'm not doing something that others can actually see producing something, then I am nothing. And so that fear kind of quiets them down back into being into the matrix. And so very few people escape the matrix, which is why that's a big topic, and even in movies and things, escaping the matrix, because the majority of people are living in the matrix, and we can see that all around us. You know, they are the people that listen to the expert, to the doctor, to this, to that, rather than listening to their own intuition, rather than listening to spirit, rather than listening to their own inner self that is already guiding them with the infinite knowledge of everything all combined. So that is the matrix people. And so when I'm talking about these things, I'm talking about them also in dimensions. So you may have heard like this, the second dimension, the third dimension, the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension. These dimensions are, again, just labels, mumbo jumbo, but they do if we're going to put them in a way that we can understand them, the mind can understand them, they do signify something. So what we're talking about here is like the second dimension when we're talking about the parasite, the narcissist. Now, when we get up to the matrix people, we could go a little bit more into the 3D and the third dimension. So that's where we're at now, if you want to think about it in dimensions. Okay, and so the fourth one, and this may be a 2 or 3 part video because it is quite deep. The fourth one is the mind complex, or the psychology of the mind. And this is when a person wakes up to the fact that they are not their own thoughts. And so I worked a long time in this realm, and a lot of people can get stuck in this realm for a very, very long time, if not for their whole lifetime. And so it's really working with the mind, thinking that there's something that needs to be healed, thinking that there's something wrong, going into past traumas, childhood wounds, mother wounds, going into all of these wounds. Now, it's helpful to do this kind of work. You can think about it as shadow work. It is important to go through these steps. It's not that we just bypass everything, although that can happen at times when we hear about people that have like a spontaneous awakening or a near-death experience. But for the most part, even those people at some point have to deal with those shadows. So it is okay to go in there and deal with these things, but the problem is when we get stuck in this cycle and we never transcend the mind or the psychology of things. So I worked a long time in this arena because I was a counselor. I was a mental health counselor for many years. And so I worked, on cognitive behavioral therapy. I worked on traumas. I worked on serious mental illness, and really doing so through changing the thoughts. Working on cognitive behavioral therapy, which essentially we question our thoughts. We see and go into the mind and really shake things up a bit so that we can see where there's errors in our thinking and where we can replace thoughts and where those thoughts aren't even true, and how they just kind of come in like a floating cloud, and we can see them and observe them, and they don't have to become us. They don't have to be truth. They are a lot of times programming that we have, picked up from our childhood, from what people told us, from what we felt, our teachers said about us, and those become our inner voice. And so at this level, it's a lot of working on those sorts of things. And it's, like I say, it's important to acknowledge that, to go through this stage of consciousness. But we can't live our whole lives thinking that there is something wrong with us and that we have to change this thought or that thought. Because at some level, you're going to notice that these thoughts don't stop. They may stop for a little bit or something like that, but they're going to come back. And at that point, there's got to be a change where we're no longer analyzing, thought switching, journaling about it, or doing these active things about it, but now we actually know what they are, so we don't pay attention to them. But we can get stuck in this level of psychology when we get stuck to our, let's say a therapist or psychologist, or even if it's a spiritual teacher or something like that. And we become in this bondage where we have to show up every day and hear from them, get information from them in order for us to understand ourselves. At some point, we have to take total ownership and responsibility of ourselves and thank those that helped us along the way, but continue our road knowing that we have self-confidence in ourselves and that we can listen to our inner voice now. That, the teacher is not meant to go with you throughout your whole entire life. And I can't think about it now, but I was, really into Montessori. And so Maria Montessori is the founder of Montessori. And even at the very young ages of preschool, Montessori teaches children to be very independent, to do things on their own. So the teacher is only there to teach a few things and then step back and allow the child to be independent, to be sovereign, to not rely on the teacher. So that is kind of like the model of Montessori. It's really to instill the love of learning in the child, but a very sovereign independence in that child from a very young age, so that they don't depend on others for their own learning and for their own life. So essentially, we have to thank our teachers. we have to realize that it was great that they brought us this far, but now they're going to let go of our hand. And we have everything, all of the tools we need already within us. And hopefully that teacher has sparked that within us and shown us where it is within us. And we've connected with it, so now we can move along life in a way where we don't have to depend on others, and going into psychology and the mind and all this and that to try to understand what is happening here. And so when we identify a lot with our thoughts, emotions, things like that, that is this level. It's the level of the mind, of thinking, the lowercase mind, you could say, of thinking that everything that is happening to us is very serious. When we have an emotion, we take it so serious. So why am I feeling this? And it's important to acknowledge these things, but also realize that a lot of this stuff is, like I say, just coming through the wind. It's coming through like a cloud. It doesn't define you, permanently define you in any sort of way. So again, this is a level that most people may transcend to after the matrix, but they get very, very stuck in here. And so if you are finding yourself resonating with any of this, it's important to realize again that you are your own sovereign being. There is no other individual outside of yourself that can tell you anything about yourself. Actually, they can help guide you. They can kind of teach you a little bit to show you where those aspects and things that are, your wholeness within you, your truth within you. But essentially, you have to walk your own path. And so I think this is a great stopping point, because it's like 1/3 of the consciousness that we're going to be discussing. So this probably will be a 3-part video. And so we have pretty much gone into what most people are living here right now on this earth. And next time we will go into a little bit deeper. We'll be going into those aspects of consciousness that are a lot freer, that you're going to experience a nature within you that is supernatural, that is almost magic, that you see and hear of in movies and books, and it seems like it's fantasy, but it's actually real and happening here and now, and it's always been happening. But when we're stuck in the parasite, the narcissist, the matrix, or in the mind, the lowercase mind, we feel very limited. We feel even like victims. We feel even like we have to do all we have to do to survive. But we're going to come out of the survival state, and in the next video we're going to be talking about total freedom outside of survival, outside of needing to take or needing to change anything about ourselves. So I hope that this message was informative to you. If you got something out of it, give me a like down below. If you are new here and you like these sorts of topics or talks, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. This is going to be a 3-part video, so tune in next time for the next part of this video. I love you all, and I will catch you on the next video.